For nearly 1,000 years, the Tower of London has stood silently on the north bank of the River Thames, watching empires rise and fall, kings ascend and be destroyed, and countless secrets buried beneath its stone floors. It was never just a fortress. It was a warning, a statement of dominance hammered into the heart of England. At sunrise, the tower looks harmless, bathed in soft golden light. Tourists walking its grounds, ravens perched on battlements. But when you strip away the modern world, the tower reveals its true identity, a place built on fear. Tonight, we peel back the centuries. We explore how this fortress rose from the ambitions of conquerors, how it became a palace, a prison, a torture chamber, a zoo, an armory, and how eventually its power crumbled. This is the rise and fall of the Tower of London. The story begins in 1066. England faced an invasion unlike any before. William, Duke of Normandy, now known as William the Conqueror, crossed the English Channel with an army determined to take the crown. When he defeated King Harold at the Battle of Hastings, he secured the throne. But he did not secure the people. London was restless, rebellious, dangerous. William needed more than soldiers. He needed fear. He needed a fortress that would loom over the city, reminding everyone that the Normans ruled England now, and mercy was not guaranteed. In 1078, construction of the tower began. Stone was hauled from Kent. Skilled masons carved enormous blocks. Timber cranes swung heavy stones into place as hundreds of laborers worked day and night. What rose from the ground wasn't merely a building. It was a message carved from fear. The massive central keep, later called the White Tower, could be seen from miles away. It dominated the skyline like a fist made of stone. To the English, this was not protection. It was oppression, a physical reminder that their country now belonged to a foreign king. And from the beginning, the tower had a dual purpose: shelter royalty, intimidate everyone else. By the late 11th century, the White Tower dominated the London skyline. Its tall walls cast long shadows across markets, homes, and streets. Londoners lived beneath it like villagers under a giant's foot. The tower wasn't only a fortress, it was a psychological weapon. Anyone approaching the city saw its looming presence long before the city gates. Inside, Norman soldiers patrolled day and night. Archers watched from the battlements. And Londoners quickly learned rebellion was not an option. Opposing the king meant imprisonment, or worse, inside the very walls that pierced the sky above them. The tower's rise was complete, its dominance unquestioned. During the 1100s, the tower transformed again. No longer just a fortress, it became a royal residence. Kings and queens decorated its inner chambers with tapestries, carved furniture, and blazing fireplaces. Servants rushed through stone corridors. Banquets filled the great halls with music and laughter. But even in luxury, fear lingered beneath the surface. Imagine sleeping in a palace surrounded by iron gates, soldiers, thick walls, and the constant reminder that your ancestors built this place because they feared rebellion. The tower was a palace carved from paranoia, a symbol of royal power that could turn into a prison at any time. and for many nobles, it would. Deaf became a language the tower spoke fluently. By the early 1300s, political prisoners flowed in and rarely walked out. The tower was no longer just a fortress. It was becoming the center of royal punishment. Here, enemies of the crown awaited judgment, and judgment usually meant death. The nation whispered of cruelty behind its stone walls, and the tower's reputation transformed from a royal palace into something darker. Something feared. The once celebrated fortress was now a symbol of royal terror. In 1381, something happened that had never occurred before. The tower fell. The angry forces of the peasants' revolt stormed London. Their fury was unstoppable, and even the tower's legendary defenses crumbled under the weight of pure rage. They broke inside, capturing royal officials and executing them on Tower Hill. The walls that once symbolized absolute power were now soaked in humiliation. For the first time, the tower had failed. This moment marked the beginning of doubt. If the tower wasn't invincible, what else wasn't? After King Edward IV died, his two young sons, Edward V and Richard, Duke of York, were housed in the tower for protection. But protection turned into disappearance. The boys were last seen playing in the garden, then vanished forever. Whispers pointed to their uncle, Richard III, who took the throne shortly after. The disappearance of the princes in the tower became one of the greatest mysteries in English history. A story of innocence crushed by ambition. The tower's name became forever tied to betrayal. When the Tudors came to power, especially Henry VIII, the tower became a machine of political destruction. Executions moved from rare to routine. Nobles, scholars, queens, no one was safe from Henry's paranoia. Anne Boleyn arrived here believing she would soon be released. 5 days later, she kneeled before a swordsman from France. Her death was silent, swift, and soaked into the tower's legend. The tower was now a stage for royal tragedy. In 1553, a young girl barely 17 became Queen of England for just 9 days. Lady Jane Grey, intelligent, gentle, and deeply unwilling, found herself trapped in a political scheme far bigger than she imagined. When Mary Tudor claimed the rightful crown, Jane was imprisoned in the tower. She walked its cold stone floors, knowing her story was already written. On February 12, 1554, she was led to the scaffold. Blindfolded, she whispered, "Lord, into thy hands I commend my spirit." Her tragic death cemented the tower as a place where innocence came to die. Before she became one of England's greatest monarchs, Elizabeth I was a prisoner here. Accused of treason by her sister Mary I, she arrived terrified, believing she would never leave alive. For 2 months she waited, prayed, feared the sound of footsteps outside her cell door. But fate had other plans. She was released, and soon after Mary's death, Elizabeth ascended the throne. The tower that tried to break her ended up witnessing her rise, a victory carved out of fear. Few people know the tower once served as a royal zoo. Kings collected exotic animals, lions, leopards, even a polar bear chained by the river to hunt fish. Londoners traveled for miles to see these creatures, unaware of the danger. Many visitors were mauled. Yet the animals remained a symbol of wealth and power. The tower wasn't just a prison or fortress. It was becoming a living museum of royal eccentricity. After the failed gunpowder plot in 1605, Guy Fawkes was captured and dragged to the tower. He endured brutal interrogations, refusing to betray his comrades for 2 days. But the rack broke even the bravest hearts. When he finally signed his confession, the signature was barely more than a trembling scratch. The tower's dungeons became infamous, a warning to anyone daring to defy the crown. As centuries passed, the tower's role shifted. No longer the epicenter of royal terror, it became a ceremonial fortress, an armory, and a symbol of continuity rather than fear. Executions moved away from Tower Green. Political prisoners became rare. The stone walls that once echoed with screams grew quieter. But the ghosts of history stayed behind, and the tower's reputation, built across blood, power, betrayal, and mystery, never disappeared. By the early 20th century, the tower had changed, but not completely. During World War I, one final echo of its brutal past resurfaced. In 1916, a German spy named Josef Jakobs was captured. Blindfolded, tied to a wooden chair, he faced a firing squad inside the tower grounds. His death marked the tower's last execution. A chapter that had lasted nearly 1,000 years quietly came to an end. The tower, once soaked in the blood of queens and traitors, finally shut its gates to death. During World War II, the tower unexpectedly returned to its ancient role as a fortress. Anti-aircraft guns fired at enemy planes from the battlements. The moat became a military training ground. Its medieval walls trembled under the thunder of modern warfare. Yet even in the darkest moments of the Blitz, the tower stood strong, a symbol of endurance, of a nation refusing to break. Its ancient stones survived bombs that destroyed much of London. Deep within the tower lies the Jewel House, protectors of the crown jewels, the heart of the British monarchy. Diamonds, rubies, scepters, orbs, objects worth billions guarded around the clock. The most iconic piece? The imperial state crown, holding more than 3,000 gemstones. These treasures have witnessed coronations, wars, betrayals, and rebirths. They represent power that survived centuries of chaos, protected by the same fortress that once crumbled kingdoms. Where history bleeds, spirits tend to linger. Visitors tell stories of footsteps echoing where no one walks, crying in the dungeons, a woman in Tudor dress pacing Tower Green. Some swear they've seen the ghost of Anne Boleyn carrying her severed head. Others claim the young princes wander the halls, searching for a fate they never chose. The tower's ghosts are more than stories. They are the echoes of centuries that refuse to fade. Legend says that if the ravens ever leave the tower, the kingdom will fall. So for centuries, these birds have been kept, fed, and protected with royal importance. Today, at least 6 ravens live here, each with names and personalities. Tourists see birds, but historians see symbols. Symbols that tie the present to the ancient heartbeat of the tower. The ravens walk freely on the lawns, watching over the same walls that once decided the fate of monarchs. The kingdom stands, and so do they. By the 19th century, the tower transformed again. Not through war or blood, but through curiosity. people from across the world flocked to see its dungeons, armories, and ancient stones. The tower officially opened to the public, becoming one of London's most visited historical sites. Guides told stories of kings, queens, torture, and ghosts. The tower's legends becoming as valuable as its walls. The fortress that once inspired fear now inspired fascination. As the tower modernized, archaeologists began digging beneath its surface. They uncovered long-buried skeletons, rusted shackles, broken swords, fragments of stories forgotten by time. Every discovery revealed another layer of the tower's identity. Warrior fortress, royal palace, prison, zoo, museum. Each artifact whispered a truth. The tower was never just one thing. It evolved, survived, and adapted to every century that reshaped it. Most executions didn't happen inside the tower. They happened outside on Tower Hill. Here, crowds gathered to watch nobles, traitors, and rebels face their final moments, from Thomas More to Thomas Cromwell. The hill became a stage where history turned with every falling axe. The people watched justice, tragedy, and politics collide, a brutal theater that shaped England's destiny. The tower and the hill stood together as silent partners in centuries of death and power. Every stone in the Tower of London tells a story. The Norman architecture of the White Tower, the medieval walls raised by later kings, the narrow arrow slits, the walkways built for archers. These features weren't decoration, they were strategy, designed for war, built for survival. The tower wasn't shaped by architects, it was shaped by fear, power, and the constant threat of invasion. By the 20th and 21st centuries, preserving the tower became a national mission. Damaged stones were repaired, historic rooms restored, the medieval moat transformed into lush green space. Restoration teams worked with surgical precision, ensuring every change honored the past. The tower no longer prepared for war. It prepared for the future, protecting its legacy for generations yet to come. Today, the tower is more than a historical site. It's a cultural icon, a symbol of Britain's endurance, identity, and monarchy. Millions visit each year to witness the Beefeater ceremonies, the Raven's guardianship, and the Crown Jewel's brilliance. The tower represents both the darkest and most triumphant chapters of England's past, an honest reflection of the nation it helped build. When night falls, the tower changes. The crowds vanish, the lights dim, and the fortress returns to its ancient silence. The wind whistles through the battlements. The river reflects the dark silhouette of the White Tower. Only the ravens and guards roam the grounds. It feels as though the past awakens after dark. 1,000 years of memories drifting like shadows across stone. Few places on Earth have witnessed so much: coronations, betrayals, invasions, love stories, war, torture, mystery, and miracles. The tower's legacy is not defined by a single era. It is thousands of years woven into one fortress, a living monument of human ambition and survival. Its story is the story of England itself, complicated, powerful, beautiful, and haunted. The modern tower stands between two worlds, the ancient world carved in blood, and the modern world built on memory and tourism. Children laugh on the lawns where kings once died. Historians study halls once soaked in fear, and visitors marvel at treasures once locked behind iron bars. The tower didn't fall, it evolved. And in that evolution lies its greatest triumph. From a Norman fortress, to a royal palace, to a prison of terror, to a symbol of culture and history, the Tower of London has risen, fallen, and risen again, more times than the kings who ruled it. Its walls have witnessed humanity's best and worst, and still they stand, scarred, powerful, and timeless. This is not the end of the tower's story. It is merely the latest chapter of a fortress that refuses to die. The Tower of London, forever watching over the river, the city, and the kingdom it shaped.